And good afternoon. This is a special meeting of the Raleigh Board of Selectmen for May 26, 2015. The time being 2:03, I call the meeting to order. And Larry, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Larry. Okay, this is a special meeting, and our first agenda item under special business is memo from Larry White, Water Board meeting of May 19th, 2015. Okay, to the Raleigh Board of Selectmen from Lawrence D. White, Chairman, Raleigh Finance Committee. 20 May 2015, subject Water Board of Commissioners meeting of 19 May 2015. At the Raleigh Water Board of Commissioners meeting on May 19th, 2015, there was a discussion concerning the non-payment of interest charges to Steve Comley. Towards the end of the discussion, Tim Toomey proposed a reduction in the interest charges owed by Mr. Comley, and that Mr. Comley should propose an amount that would make him a quote-unquote happy customer. I asked the Board of Selectmen, by what authority does the Water Department have the Water Commissioners can propose a reduction or elimination of interest charges for unpaid water bills in arrears? I believe that the Commissioners have no authority and that no reduction or elimination be granted unless approved by the Raleigh Treasurer, and that the Commissioners cease and desist the consideration of granting reductions or eliminations of interest and/or penalties of unpaid water bills. Signed, Lawrence D. White. So Larry, do you have any comment on that, or do you have anything you want to read on that?
I think it basically summarizes everything. The biggest, my other concern, of course, is that if reductions in interest charges are given, that there are at least 28 other customers that paid penalty and interest charges until that meeting, and probably significantly others that have paid their water bills to bring them up to present, and not counting any interest and penalty charges of past months, years, whatever type of a thing. It's opening up a whole can of worms to start granting reduction in interest charges, and especially since the Water Department has a revenue shortfall of $350,000 and 4 weeks left to make up that difference.
Wow. Yep.
I don't think it's going to happen, but that's subject to another meeting.
Okay. Is there any comments from the board or board members?
Did Karen you looked up some,
Yeah.
Could you give us your authority in this, or what you found out as to?
Well, basically, kind of the standard is you have to treat everybody the same. So that really didn't make sense to me that they could just, discretionarily waive interest. Because I know that as the treasurer, under statute, I have the ability to waive up to $15 in charges. So if I have that and I'm the treasurer, it makes no sense that they would have any ability. And as the collector, basically I'm responsible for the collection of funds owed to the town. So what I did is, and this goes into item number 2, is the Department of Revenue has an attorney of the day that basically you can call and ask for guidance. They won't give you specifics, but I called and I said, okay, can you give me some help here? Tell me where to look. So the first thing, I spoke with Patricia Hunt of the DOR, and the first thing she said was, has the town of Raleigh accepted Mass GL Chapter 40, Sections A through F? And I found that in reviewing the town report database, that in 1972, they had in fact accepted that. And I also looked and I could see no evidence that the town had repealed that since. So I'm going to go with the assumption that it's still in effect. And then I went through the 2013 Raleigh Water Department Rules and Regulation, and Article 8, Section 4 deals with interest charges, which is on the second page of the memo that you have in your packet. And basically it says interest charges to the maximum percentage permitted under Mass General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 42A, as amended, shall be assessed on unpaid balances from the 31st day following the date of billing and should be added to the next billing period. So basically, her take on it was, well, if they're authorized to charge interest, then they have to charge interest. That was pretty much the bottom line. So I really don't see that they have any authority to discretionarily waive interest. The only time they would waive interest would be if they had abated water usage and they abated the interest that went along with that. Basically, the other point of that she had brought up is that Chapter 40, Section 42C states that if it's accepted, the water department shall lien outstanding balances to the tax bills, not may. So that is something that going forward, when we get closer to the end of the fiscal year and it gets to be that point in time, that should put a policy in place with regard to that. What part of the problem is that they haven't had policies at the water department, and I know Mary Beth has been working on policies and procedures. And you can't be granting abatements or granting exemptions, on a willy-nilly basis. You have to have a policy, and it has to apply to everybody. So in my opinion, I don't see, based on these statutes, that they can waive this interest. Although I would, ask that the Board of Selectmen run this by town council, just to make sure I'm looking at the right information.
Okay, so actually you're correct. It's under actually item number 2 on our special business. And it is memo from Parents Aren't Reability of Water Board Commissioners to waive interest charges. And after the board has reviewed and discussed Karen's memo, the board should consider having attorney Judy Pickett review and provide a written determination on the ability of the Board of Water Commissioners to waive interest charges on money owed to the town. So you did kind of pretty much highlight it.
Yeah,
as
yeah,
far
and
as,
all the statutes and the water department regulations are attached here. So if there's any detail that anyone would like to take a look at. And there's also a copy of the email that I sent to the attorney of the day. They tend to respond over the phone, so I don't have a return email to attach, but basically, the gist of the conversation is documented in my memo.
right. So that you actually applied to them, and this was on May 20th at 10:40 a.m. And it says, "Good morning. The town of Raleigh has a water department enterprise fund established under Mass General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 39A. At a recent public water commissioners meeting, a member of the town's finance committee questioned whether or not the water commissioners could waive interests and fees on an account, and if so, under what statute. Given that when a payment is made, the payment goes to payment of interest first and then to rates, would this require the board to abate the rates? Question mark. As the treasurer, I can only waive up to $15, and the amount in question is over $100. So I have doubts about whether this is legal. I would like to to clarify whether or not this is something they can do, and if so, under what jurisdiction. Thanks, Karen Summit, Treasurer Collector. Okay. And we have several sections from 42A and 42B, 42C, and 42D. Do we want to read those? Actually, 42E also.
And,
Do we want to read those into the minutes of the meeting?
No, I think we just vote to attach them to the minutes.
Okay, don't forget F.
We all have copies.
Don't forget F. It goes from A to F under 42.
Yeah, I would recommend we just attach them to the minutes of the meeting.
Okay? Is there any other discussion?
I just want to say, it seems clear to me from the Water Department's own regulation, which says that interest shall be assessed on unpaid balances without providing any provision for a waiver or a reduction, that I think it's clear to me that they cannot do this. They're in violation of their own regulation.
And not only that, but also by accepting that act in 72, that act, the general law,
Mhm.
it's by state law also.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. So, I mean, they really can't wiggle out of it, I don't think.
I mean, I don't see how,
You know, I don't either. I mean, it's pretty clear.
I mean, shall means shall,
Right.
you know.
Yes, and there is a definition for shall. And it isn't maybe.
Well, and it doesn't appear that there was any kind of an error made.
Right.
I don't believe there was a request for an abatement.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact wording in the meeting.
It also raises the issue of unfairness, which you alluded to, that, you know, why are they doing it just because the person's well-known in town, or are they doing this for everyone, or nobody, you know, I
Hmm.
mean.
I don't know.
I think the other serious error here is the water board asked the person that owes the money to consider what they thought would be a fair share to pay.
Yeah.
So does that mean that anytime someone disputes a bill, that anybody at any board or whatever involved has the right to have the person who owes the money determine what they feel like they should pay and what they don't? I mean, the water board, I mean, I don't know how you could rule that way.
Right.
And have any kind of a sensible policy if you're gonna let the delinquent taxpayer or the delinquent water rate payer determine what he or she feels is an appropriate amount to pay, just off the top of their head. I mean, we'll have all kinds of people trooping into all kinds of offices saying, well, I think this is too high, I would think I only wanna pay this amount.
Right.
So once you set this precedent,
I think it's a
and I think it's illegal anyway, but I mean, it just leaves all the other water rate payers saying, well, wait a minute, you know, I'm not happy with my bill either. And at that particular meeting, there were a number of people who were unhappy about the $20 surcharge, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all gonna be trooping in there looking for, well, if I don't pay my water bill, if there's no penalty, I can just determine what I feel like paying for a penalty. And as Larry mentioned, they're already, at this point, it appears to be that for this fiscal year, which ends in a month, they're $350,000 short on revenue. Now, I'm not sure where we're gonna get the revenue to pay that, because DOR is gonna require that the town come up with, whether it's the water department or the rest of the taxpayers. I'm not sure how we come up with $350,000 more dollars, and they're sitting there abating and rewarding people who don't pay. You know, it's ridiculous. We're here to be fair to everybody, and we're here to, as part of our duties, to make sure that the water department is being operated correctly. And I just think it's a slap to all of us to have them making these kinds of decisions and these kinds of rulings. And I think we should send them a letter for their next meeting. I would recommend that we, yes, have Judy send this packet to Judy for an opinion. But in the meantime, send them a letter advising that, and it's our opinion at this point that this is illegal, unethical, and whatever other terms we want to use, and that we've forwarded to the town's attorney, and they should make no decision on this until we at least get an opinion back from the town attorney. And in fact, I don't think they have a legal right to, even if they make the decision, I'm not gonna sign a a rebate as a member of the Board of Selectmen for something that I feel is illegal, and I'm sure this is gonna be determined to be, so. I think we need an immediate letter to the board for their next meeting. I'm not sure when the meeting again.
And I would
And,
suggest we add the very dangerous precedents that will be set by that action.
Right. Right.
If Dave has made that into a motion, I would second it.
Yeah, I'll make that into a motion.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Voice unanimous.
Thank you, Karen, that was a very thorough job.
Yes.
Welcome.
Good detective work.
Thank you, Larry, too, for your concern.
Okay. Also, under special business, we have item 3, which is discuss obtaining written legal opinion on appointing authority of the water board. Does the board wish to vote to request Labor Counsel, Joe Fair, write a legal opinion on the appointing authority of the water board? And I personally think that we should do that. I know we've discussed it several times and haven't really followed through with actually asking Joe to do the written opinion. And I would recommend that we do that now.
I think based on our previous meeting that we should make this request of Joe Fair that we get a written legal opinion on the appointing authority.
Do you have anything to add, Bob?
I got a whole bunch to add.
Well, we still got time.
Okay. I would urge everybody listening to this meeting today, to understand that this meeting is in the afternoon, a special meeting, and there's a reason for it. If you go back to last Tuesday and look at the meeting of the 19th of the Water Board and watch it, and I stormed out of the meeting, and the reason for it was Robert's rules weren't observed, the agenda wasn't observed, parliamentary procedure was not observed. It was one of the most chaotic meetings I've ever attended. And I let the commissioners know, and it was about 1 hour and 10 minutes into the meeting, that I exploded because the superintendent was ignored. She left the meeting, and the commissioners continued on in the meeting, which, again, I've used this word so many times when dealing with the water department. The word appalling, and it was appalling. This is my 8th year sitting at this table, and in those 8 years, I have dealt in and out with Tree Gate, we can all remember back to that, Garage Gate, Deer Gate, but it all has to do with the water department. And after I left the meeting, I was informed that one of the commissioners was talking about furniture, and he was concerned about the price that the superintendent had paid. I have in my hand, and I'll give this into the record, okay? There's some that commissioner signed off on in 2012 about furniture. A lot more than what he's talking about with the superintendent up there. Here's $3,879 of garage furniture. This is unappropriated. This was all, when we went through, we could go back, and I don't want to go back into history of the water department and Garage Gate, but that was not appropriated at town meeting. And now this commissioner feels that this, of what the superintendent bought, of $200, of something like that, of furniture, is something of concern. When he signed off on the garage gate. So, you people at home, you need to sit down, you need to watch the water board meeting of the 19th. This is very important. This is concerns you and your water department, okay? And I urge you to do that. And that's all. If anybody at the table here who wishes to add to it, what I've said, please do.
Well, I've been traditionally a little reluctant to get involved in this appointing authority of the water board people, primarily because I do not feel that it's our duty to be hiring in the sense of everyday functions of the water board, that if in fact they do not have some part in the hiring process or the review process, that everything gets laid at the foot of this board, and it means more duties for our administrative staff as well as the board here. I think if you look, the history more or less has been, in most cases, departments that come under the Board of Selectmen's appointing authority. And in this case, I know Joe Fair, our labor attorney, has mentioned the fact that nowhere in the statute does it give, the statute that established the Water Enterprise Fund, does it give the water board authority to hire and fire employees. So that would mean that that power remains with the Board of Selectmen. If that's the case and that's the way Joe rules, I'm fine with that. But I think we need to reinforce what we do and how we do hire employees that come under our authority at this point. For instance, the treasurer, I believe, and the other departments that come under the Board of Selectmen in general, that what happens is the personnel board or the personnel office reviews when there's a position open. They review the job description and make sure that at this point, and it hasn't always been done, but it's the new policy the last few years since we've really revamped things, that they review all applicants to make sure that they have the qualifications and degrees and or licenses or whatever the requirement is for that position. Then the department that's involved is given those applications. They do interviews and so on and so forth, and they recommend to the Board of Selectmen who they want to hire. I mean, it's not, I'm not going to sit here, and I don't think any of us want to sit here and say that we are capable of interviewing water department employees, for instance, with license requirements. That should be the job of the water superintendent. Any more than when I've watched the water board conduct their recent interviews of candidates, it's basically been embarrassing. I mean, they ask a couple of cursory questions that really don't deal with any of the technical requirements of the positions over there, and most all of those positions at the water department require certain licenses and certain qualifications and education and so on and so forth. Even when it came to the hiring of the superintendent, their hiring interview or their interview process for hiring that position was subpar, very much subpar. So to conform, if we're going to do this, to conform with what the other departments do, I would recommend that we clearly define. Have Joe or have the attorney give us an opinion, and then that we clearly define, not just for the water department, but for all departments that come under our jurisdiction, exactly what the hiring process is. Because I think in the end, and correct me if I'm wrong, Debbie, but in the union contract, for instance, a grievance, a disciplinary grievance that takes place by a union member of the water department or any department is investigated step one by their department. But ultimately, it comes to the Board of Selectmen in the grievance process. So we ultimately can determine what punishment and or dismissal takes place, not the department, and the water department's included in that. So at this point, I don't see us having a problem delegating our authority to somebody else. I think we can do that. But I think at this point, so not just to single out the water department. And I'm not saying anything about any other department. We've had no problems, as far as I know, with any other department in terms of hiring. But hiring has been an issue with the water department, and how they interview and how they go through these applications has been a problem up there for quite some time. So I would recommend that I don't know exactly what the hiring policy is if we have one, but we should review that and clearly set a hiring policy for those positions that we have control over. Clearly, so that each department is given a copy, including, at this point, primarily the water department. And so that, taking into account also the fact that it's a union position, and in the union grievance process, we are the ultimate hiring authority, even though we may delegate that to others. You know, we are part of that process, and if someone wants to go to court to carry on a grievance beyond when the Board of Selectmen hears it, then, you know, we're the ones that are accountable for whatever ultimate discipline was given. And this, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is true for the police department, the fire department, as well as a lot of the individual offices that fall under our general jurisprudence. And I mean, we sign off on payroll, we sign off, we are the ultimate signers in all these issues. And I think it's important at this point that we get an opinion from the council just to reinforce what he told us, what he has told us orally. And we'll let the water department know, that, as well as all departments. In other words, let's put if we already have a policy, let's redistribute it to all the departments that are involved. If not, we need to write that policy in a memo initially anyway, and make sure that that's followed, because this is, I mean, the water department is, at this point, is basically running out of control. They don't pay much attention. They seem to ignore the superintendent, as evidenced by the meeting that you discussed, Bob, that they don't even listen to them. I mean, they just kind of do what they want up there, as evidenced by everything we've talked about so far. And there are a number of other issues that we have that aren't on this agenda that we can't discuss today, but it's a general, the place is a mess. And I think we need to make sure that the water board understands the limits of their authority for both making abatements on things as well as the hiring process. But I just want to make sure that they're involved, that we make it clear that whatever department is hiring a new employee, that once the personnel board or the personnel administrator reviews any and all applications for completeness and proper credentials, that the department can then assume the, you know, interviewing. And 'cause obviously, if you're a boss, you want to hire someone that you feel you can work with, not with the Board of Selectmen. But on the other hand, we have if there's things come to light that we want to reject a hiring or a grievance process whereby it may be necessary to fire an employee or impose discipline, is allowed under the contract, labor contract, that it's clear to everyone that that's part of our authority as the chief administrative officials of the town. And, you know, the water board just seems to not understand, they don't understand what their role is. They try to run day-to-day decisions over there instead of letting the water superintendent, who has all the licenses, all the expertise, years of experience in doing what she's doing, and they basically ignore her. And I mean, it's a disgrace as far as I'm concerned. And I think at this point, we need to, as reluctant as I am to, and I have been, to have this memo written. I think at this point, it's a necessity. And I think it's important that we include all departments so that everyone understands what the policy is, as well as we understand it, so that we don't overstep our bounds. So that's it.
I fully agree with David, and I want to see a written opinion from Joe Fair personally.
Okay.
I think we
Yep.
need that one.
Cliff, you got anything to add?
Well, I just want to point out that during the water board meeting last week, the Labor Council did give his oral opinion that the appointing authority lies with the Board of Selectmen. But there's certainly nothing wrong with asking him to confirm that in writing.
Right, and I think Dave's right. We need to, you know, maybe review our process in that area. And,
I think it'll help our personnel plan if we don't already have that in
Well,
writing.
I'm in the middle of working on the new personnel plan that we have through a grant with Deborah Ecker at Copeland and Page, and our labor attorney has been reviewing it. So I could bring this to her attention, since we will probably, I haven't seen the section on the hiring, but the Board of Selectmen is the employer for the town of Rowley. Paycheck says Town of Rowley, employs the Board of Selectmen regardless of whatever department you work for in the end. So I can certainly have that section be reviewed. I wouldn't distribute anything until, first of all, you get the legal opinion
absolutely.
in addressing what I think you're saying is the water. We would look at other statutes. We do know there are certain statutes, Board of Assessors, Board of Library Trustees, offhand, Board of Health, that specifically say which board would have the ability to appoint an assessor or a library director, whatever, but there may be other levels of employees in different departments that I would have to look at and scrutinize. So for the purpose of this meeting, are we just talking about, for now, the water board, and then I can ask for a further review as part of the upgrade to the personnel plan, that it also look at other, a hiring policy that would cover some of these other departments and things like that?
I think we have to differentiate simply because we have some policies, like, for instance, with the library, that the,
We have to go through some of the
Yeah.
statutes and look at,
I think we should do the water board separately. We get that one put together, then we can kind of, once we get our project done that we're working on for the other plan, then we can place the other departments in where they belong.
right,
At this point, the water department thinks that nobody controls them. And unfortunately, that's not the case. As Dave has pointed out, we sign the checks, we do it all. And they need to realize that. So we need that opinion specifically for them to be able to say, look, this is what town council tells us is how it works. And I think we need that in hand. It's one thing for somebody to say it, it's another thing to have it in writing.
Yeah, I would agree with you. That it was, deal with the water department first. Particularly, I believe they have 2 new positions to be appointed in the new fiscal year.
actually, yes, so the personnel board will be reviewing some new job descriptions and we'll have to sit down with the union, because they'll need to be assigned pay grades, and they'll fall under the collective bargaining agreement.
So I think it's important that the water board understand those 2 positions are gonna come under this new
right.
edict, assuming that we get the written opinion
Exactly. We'll
that we
find out
want,
what
and then I
the
think
opinion
we
is.
should definitely follow it up with, and I'm not sure how you wanna do it, Debbie, but if it's part of the personnel plan or whatever, that, you know, in other words, when the new personnel plan comes out, or even before that, if the attorney comes up with something, then we should probably clearly delineate to all departments as to who has what hiring authority and firing authority, and also be sure to include union issues, the union contract, that I assume takes precedence over.
Well, this may result in a rewrite of some job descriptions, which will say, the way the job description template is
We've been doing so much work in the last 2 or 3 years on overhauling the personnel system between the pay,
Mhm.
the issues of pay grades and rates. And I think this is obviously it didn't appear to be a big issue until now, but I think as long as it's come to light, I think it's important that we, in a separate area, make sure that it's clear that so we don't run into this problem again with any department.
I'll make a motion
Okay.
that we
Right.
get the request from,
Larry?
I'm sorry,
Yep.
Yeah, I know I'm not a selectman, so I mean, you can take my comments with a grain of salt, but I noticed at the water meeting that the superintendent walked out because the water commissioners wanted to turn on the cemetery, okay, and the superintendent pointed out that that was against DEP regulations, and that it couldn't be hooked up, there would be leaks and things like that. And basically the superintendent left because she was ignored, and they voted 2 in favor, 1 abstaining, to turn on the cemetery water, which was against DEP regulations, okay? And I think we needed an opinion that if, basically, there were 4 people plus the superintendent out there turning on the water, and then for half a day chasing leaks, okay? Basically against the law. And that if in the superintendent's opinion, she feels like she's gonna have to break the law, that at least, you know, if the selectmen have the hiring, firing authority, that they step in and prevent further criminal activities. And also, just as a reminder, I'm sure you're well aware of it, that the town, not the water department right now, is in hock for $350,000. The water superintendent at their meeting pointed out that they have against the town pending litigation, okay, that they needed to address, which the water commissioners did not address. You know, again, they're hung up in this day-to-day operation and not looking at what they should be looking at: revenues, overall expenses, and things that are detrimental to the whole town, not just the water department.
Right.
It's affecting the whole town. That department has gone from disappointing to dismaying to despicable. And it's reflecting on the whole town itself.
Larry, if I may, the reason for my eruption at the meeting was because of the superintendent being ignored, especially about the cemetery, and trying to point out, and they were trying to, as far as I was concerned, run the day-to-day operations of
Exactly.
the water department. And I erupted, and one of the first things I said, I don't go down to the police department and tell the police chief how to do his business, even though I sit on the Board of Selectmen. I don't go to the highway surveyor and tell the highway surveyor how to do his job. My job, and their job too, is policy and oversight. There's no more. And they continue and I had to erupt because they just completely ignored her and she walked out. And I don't blame her for walking out. And again, the people at home need to watch that meeting.
I think one of the reasons she walked out, Bob, was because basically she was trying to explain to them
Yeah.
that by ordering her to do what they did, she has the possibility of losing her licenses,
Yes.
something that she needs in order to work.
Right.
And I mean, it's not fair to say to them, you know, you've got to break the law because we said we got complaints from certain people that don't have water in the cemetery. You can't do that. You really can't do that.
Well, can I ask, how is turning on the water to the cemetery violative of a DEP
It's
regulation?
not a necessary restriction. We have a water ban on.
That's number one. Water ban
Violates the
number
water
one.
ban. Okay,
The
what else?
second thing is that they have broken pipes over there,
Mhm.
which is a cross connection. It can lead to contaminants backflowing through the system without a backflow preventer.
Okay.
That's why they use backflow preventers. It prevents backflow. If there happened to be a reason to hook up to a fire hydrant out here in front and use water with a fire truck, they could very well pull a vacuum and it would suck all of that dirty water that's come out of the leak in the pipe back into the system. And you just can't do that. And it's against DEP regulations. And there's things called cross connections, where you hook up a hose. Well, actually, we had one come through the other day where somebody had put in a well and they have town water. And they tied the two systems together. They use the well in the summertime and the town water in the wintertime. But that's a cross connection. Who tests that well water? It's being put back into the town system. So, I mean, things like that. And she was trying to explain to them why they shouldn't be doing that. And they just ignored it completely. Which is, it's a sad situation. It really is a sad situation. So I think we definitely need to get this opinion.
Well, the superintendent needs to know that if she is asked to do something that is illegal or that could cause her to lose her license, that she can go to a higher authority, i.e. you, the selectmen, and seek redress.
Mr. Chairman, The water superintendent did come in, and under 310 CMR, Code of Massachusetts Regulations, she said that a licensed water operator, if they know there is a leak in a water service, what's in the cemetery is water service. Those aren't water mains that are on the street that are under the enterprise fund budget. It's a water service, which is a connection from the water main into a service. So it's a cemetery service. If there's a known water leak in a service, they're not to turn the water on under the code of regulations that they follow, that are overseen by the Department of Environmental Protection. And she said that's where the question of her ability with her license, and not to mention her concerns about the issue of a lack of a backflow preventer in that water service because of the leak, which would draw the potentially contaminant water into the distribution center, which would be the first two buildings with the library and town hall. So just to clarify, that's clearly what she said under, and that's what they have to have as licensed water operators. They have to follow those regulations.
And I think it was very frustrating for her to have them continue to keep telling her that she had to do it. I mean, when you know very well that you shouldn't do it, and you can't do it by law.
Was all that explained to the water commissioners and the technical aspects that they discussed?
And
She
after
said
the
you wouldn't
super-
listen to it.
She
And
was
after
trying
the
to.
superintendent
Wouldn't listen.
left, they voted 2 in favor, 1 abstaining to turn on the water the next day.
And Mr. Dalzell did contact me. He was trying to reach Mary Beth, who had been, I believe, here in this building, to convey that message to her, which I did.
The message was to turn it on.
Correct.
Right. And around 12:30, they started to turn the water on, and they discovered several leaks. And I came back at 3:30 and saw a great big leak, water bubbling out of the ground, and I calculated about 560 gallons. I believe I gave you pictures
Yeah.
of that, of a water service leak that had erupted even after the 4-person crew had taken care of other leaks.
Right. And I think one thing we haven't even talked about was the fact that she was ordered to go over there and turn it on and bring a crew in to set it up and fix whatever they could fix at the point, was that we actually had to shut down the water treatment plant
Yes.
in order to do that, which is another thing we gotta deal with. I mean, how can you do that?
Plus, the repair of those leaks over there is a responsibility at the cost of the cemetery department.
Exactly.
So the water department bore the cost of 4
Right, they-
employees plus the superintendent for, say, 4 hours each.
Plus materials.
Plus materials. And I'm not even sure if the cemetery department had any idea what was even going on over there. So, I mean,
I didn't
there's a
see any
procedure for
cemetery
handling these
personnel
things.
over there on the 4 times that I was over there during the day.
Like you say, the water treatment plant's shut down. We paid $12 million for a water treatment plant, and they pull everybody off at it for a whim to hook up cemetery water. I mean, it's just, priorities here are just skewed out of whack beyond belief, and there's no, and she's basically jeopardizing her position, and I assume the other licensed operators are too by doing
Exactly.
what they're doing.
Exactly.
But
They're
for the
coming-
whim of the
Commissioner.
commissioners who really seem to have no idea what they're doing, or what the rules and what the regulations are in any area, not just this, but whether it's personnel or whatever. They just seem to do what seems to come to mind, as we saw with the rebating of interest.
The
Because
danger
if they
here.
feel like doing it, they feel they have the authority because we're quote-unquote water commissioners.
The danger here is we're reverting back to 3 years ago with, again, Garage Gate, Deer Gate, all the other, we're back in this mindset of the commissioners running the day-to-day operation of the water department. That's the reason we hired a superintendent, the reason we hire a police chief, or any other department head, is to run the day-to-day operation, not for an elected board to run the day-to-day operation. And we are headed to a continued chaos.
It's a very dangerous precedent.
Yes.
It really is. I mean, we could be in big, big trouble.
Particularly when we got a highly qualified,
Yes.
highly experienced, knowledgeable superintendent that's supposed to be making those kinds of
You know,
decisions.
if they force her into doing those things, the DEP will step in here and take over the whole system.
Or impose fines. We've seen
Oh,
that
yeah.
before.
You'll be under
Right.
another consent order. I can guarantee it. It's the only way you can
Meanwhile,
do
they
it.
don't seem too interested in collecting the $350,000 that their budget is short because they didn't set the rates right last year. Or the collections weren't paid, who knows what the reason is, but
In the Board of
we got a
Select-
serious financial issue coming up on us here
Yeah,
because of that
fiscal year.
$350,000
Yeah,
that's
better
owed, and they don't seem to wanna
We'll be lucky if we can set the tax rate.
play with it. And then on top of that, as Larry mentioned, there's a lawsuit from the contractor who built the plant. And they haven't addressed that. I mean, there's all kinds of important issues that they need to address, that they worry about abating interest and turning on the water in the cemetery and doing other things that are on the edge anyway of being illegal or unethical. And we don't have the control over them in some of these areas, but I mean, obviously, we can't let them violate the law, and that's why we're looking for these kinds of legal opinions, both from the treasurer for her area of expertise and a lawyer for our area, and just common sense. I mean, it's like Bob says, you watch the meeting and you just shake your head. These people are responsible for our water system that we drink every day, as well as a $12 million plant that we just built, and the day-to-day operations of the distribution system, so.
Yeah.
Do we need a motion for?
Okay, you're still gonna make the motion, Joe?
I still will make my motion that we seek a written opinion from Joe Fair that applies to the water board, water commissioners.
Okay.
I'll second
and
that.
department.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Thank you. Hearing none.
Aye.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. So that pretty much takes care of that. Item 3 is the last one. We don't believe there's anything else to discuss at this
Take a
point.
motion to adjourn.
I would like, before we adjourn, that we have the finance, chairman of the finance committee has brought up other issues, and I'd like to have him on the agenda for Monday night, if that's agreeable to the chair.
I mean, he's generally here anyway. A lot of times.
You can force me to be here by requiring me on the agenda.
Yeah,
Which is
I think
fine.
that's a very good idea, Joe.
we can invite him, Joe. How's that?
We'll invite him.
Rather than forcing, why don't we invite him?
But I, those items that he put on the note to discuss.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what, Mr. Chairman.
I think we should put that on the agenda, Larry,
Yes.
if you don't mind coming in.
No.
Okay. Appreciate
I
it.
just want to make one more comment.
Sure.
In that, I think the water superintendent, the primary and secondary operators, and all those at the plant are doing a very great job, absolutely tremendous. They're standing as one. They're doing as they're told. They're a great group. I've met them on the tour and stuff like that. I'm proud that we have those type of people. You know, they are under adversity doing a very great job, and I thank them for it.
Thank you for that.
Absolutely. I
Agree.
fully agree with you on that one. Absolutely.
Okay,
Motion to adjourn?
we have a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded, takes priority. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you, Larry.